Good evening, everybody. How's that? Is that working yet? No? Hello? Can you hear me up the back? How's that? How's that? I might run out of volume here in a second. Is that any better? Okay. Thank you all for coming. Firstly, if I could ask everybody to please turn your mobile phones off or to silent. The first one to ring will shout the bar. Hopefully mine's turned off. Welcome everyone to tonight's inaugural Rural Voices Matter Community Information Night. My name is Sally Edwards and I have the privilege of convening tonight's discussion. My background is in both agriculture and rural community development. Firstly, I want to extend my sincere thanks to Nancy Dent, who first sparked the idea of talking to industry leaders and community members about the many challenges we face and what we can do to protect our future. Thanks, Nancy. Tonight, we hope to revive the very notion that rural voices matter, and they don't just matter a bit, they matter a lot. Australian farmers grow some of the freshest, most nutritious food in the world, feeding and sustaining millions. It is time for rural communities to come together, get involved, and have their voices heard, your voices heard, in order to protect our farms, our families, our communities, and our way of life. We would like to sincerely thank and welcome to Scone all our invited special guests tonight, who I will introduce to you soon. Your willingness to participate and have input during the question and answer session tonight is very much appreciated. Thank you. We also thank and welcome the organisations and parties who have joined us with information on what they do and how they can help. Most importantly, they can show you how your involvement can help them achieve stronger outcomes in their bid to advocate and represent agriculture and rural communities and protect all that we hold dear. Thank you to Property Rights Australia, CWA, AusExits, Australians for Australia, Let's Rethink Renewables, Shooters, Fishers, Farmers, and the Libertarians. Thank you. We were excited to invite former Deputy Prime Minister and sixth generation farmer, the Honourable John Anderson AC, to join us to present tonight's welcome address. Unfortunately, John sends his apologies as he was unable to make it in person, but we are honoured to share with you a recorded welcome address sent in by John.
Well, Sally, to you and your co-conveners of Rural Voices Matter, I just want to say I think it's fantastic that you're doing what you're doing. Rural matters are really important. And I don't claim to be particularly clever, but I have managed two strokes of brilliance in my life. I chose my parents well because they were Australian. And the second part of it was that they were country Australians, sixth generation on my mother's side, fifth on my father's, in the northwest of New South Wales. And I think that we have such a valuable and incredible heritage that it hardly needs mentioning that we've played a great role in building a great country We have a great role going forward in providing food, fibre and other amenities as well, a nice environment, for example, and part of our cultural law in rural Australia. We also feed and clothe many, many people internationally, and yet our policy needs are not being heard as clearly now as they might be. We are a nation fragmenting. We are divided in so many ways that it really worries me. Trust has broken down. We no longer trust our governments. In fact, the research shows that 2/3 of us distrust our state and federal governments most of the time. That's a serious situation. We don't trust our institutions terribly much either. In fact, often we're doubtful about the very ideas that stand behind the institutions of our freedoms. And I'm worried about those things. What can we do? The first thing we need to do is to be engaged, which is what you're seeking to do. I run a podcast series. I was talking to a former judge of the Supreme Court, a very, very well-known Englishman called Lord Jonathan Sumption. And he made the point that the age of volunteerism has resulted, or the loss of volunteerism has resulted in a great disengagement. And he made the point in relation to politics in Britain that for many years after the Second World War, there were about 1 million Brits who belonged to the Labor Party, about 2 million to the Conservative parties, about 3 million altogether. Now it's dwindled away to nothing because people are cynical and disengaged and not trustful. And the Royal Society of Bird Watchers in Great Britain has more members than the political parties combined, although Nigel Farage's new organisation might have changed that. But my point is that it's not just politics, it's everywhere. People have felt no one's listening, nobody wants to hear my perspective, I'll disengage. Well, that unfortunately is understandable, but it's not the best way forward. So good on you for having a go, for thinking about how you can make a difference and how you can have your voices heard. I would say that there are very real needs in rural Australia today. Much of it relates to the things that we have in common with businesses everywhere. We need a highly competitive economic environment. We need interest rates to be as low as possible. We need the currency to be at the best possible level that it can be. We need efficient transport. We need low power costs, competitive power costs. We need wharves that work. They're the big picture things that we need. We need other things, I think, like telecommunications that work, rural health systems that work. There are very sound economic as well as social justice reasons for these things. And they won't happen without loud and clear voices in the halls of power. I do want to make one point, having had many years in government, and that was that the National Farmers Federation in the 1980s and 1990s, with a lot of help from the New South Wales Farmers Association, were telling us very clearly what policies rural and regional Australia needed, and it made a real difference. There were many times when the input of Australia's farmers made a real difference in Canberra because they were able to tell us what we needed to do on tax. They were able to tell us what we needed to do on the waterfront. They were able to tell us how we improved productivity and what needed to be done with transport. And I think of the CWA. They wrote a paper on life in country Australia, and it said that medical services, education and social life were very important. You couldn't do any of them without local roads that worked. And out of that, we gave birth to a program called Roads to Recovery, and it made a real difference at local level because you can't access health and education and a social life if you can't get around. That was another example of high quality input making a difference. You'll feel frustrated, that's why you've got together, about whether your voices are being heard at the moment. There are no magic formulas except to say that it begins with turning up, which is exactly what you're doing. It really often means too that you've got to be able to engage with your elected members. More than that, where they're good local members, and it's important to work out, are they members who understand and are they members who can filter things through to Cabinet? Cabinet is where the decisions are ultimately made. That 15, 16, 17 people around the table with the Prime Minister, or in this case of the states, the premiers, who make the decisions and set the policy parameters. It actually matters. That's how our system works. So as you consider all of these things, I can only say to you, all power to your right arm, it really is important. Australia, in the end, is just the sum total of the Australians who make it up. Every one of us, multiplied by 27 million. If we're all disengaged and expecting somebody else to do it, nothing will happen. If we don't have clear targets, we won't hit them. We can't hit them if we don't know what they are. I can't encourage you enough. And I really wish you all the very best. If I can help in any way, always up for a cup of coffee or a beer, just to talk it all through. I don't pretend to have all of the answers, but I do know that looking for the answers is really important. Good luck to you.
Thank you, John. Hopefully you'll get to hear this message as it was recorded. I would like the room to know that John has been so thoughtful and encouraging of our initiative, and I know that he will support whatever we work to do in the future. We know that our rural communities have lost their voice. Land, water and agricultural policies being drafted and enforced, often without the input and involvement of those that know these industries inside and out. Tonight, we welcome a panel of immense knowledge, skills and experience. Thanks, Emma. Katie Nash. Katie was disappointed that she couldn't be with us tonight. Katie is co-founder with Jack Nielsen of a grassroots organisation that is nearing launch called the Future of Agricultural Leadership. You can find Katie on all your socials and Foals on Instagram if you want to keep up with the details of their new organisation. Katie is an enthusiastic and inspiring storyteller, and if you haven't yet had a dose of Katie humour or words of wisdom, check her out. We're sorry you're not here, Katie. Ian Vivers. Ian is a sixth-generation cattle farmer from the New England region of New South Wales. Together with his family, Ian runs Eagle Hawk Angus, breeding and marketing Angus bulls for the commercial beef industry. The Vivers farm was first settled in 1832, and today 3 generations still live and work on the same land. Together with his wife Sally, he also built and run businesses outside the farm gate, from Beefmark Breeding Services, an embryo transfer company, to Eagle Hawk Farms, which supplied beef directly to Sydney and Brisbane through their own stores. Agriculture has given the Vivers family a lot, but it has also demanded resilience, grit, and the ability to survive everything from droughts to market crashes. Ian believes that what's changed now is not the weather or the markets. It's the way agriculture itself is being treated, that farmers are being vilified, farmers are told their cattle destroy the environment, we're losing prime agricultural land to so-called green energy, and even our own levy-funded organisations are buying into the narrative. Meanwhile, Ian is certain the people actually producing the food and fibre that keep this country alive are being ignored. The truth for Ian is simple. Cattlemen and women are the original environmentalists. For nearly 200 years, his family has managed their land with care, maintaining a pristine environment while feeding communities. And yet 5 years ago, that environment was compromised forever when an industrial 75-tower wind farm was forced into their backyard. Ian has had enough of sitting quietly while others tell our story. He's adamant that it's time to fight back, to defend the land, the climate and the truth, because no one looks after the environment like the people who live and work on it every single day. Emma Bowman. Emma is a 5th-generation mixed farmer from Central West New South Wales who has a deep love of animals and life on the land. She's passionate about protecting Australia's agricultural industry and rural communities. After witnessing the treatment of landowners affected by transmission projects and given her first-hand experience with compulsory acquisition, Emma has supported landowners and spent countless hours attempting to improve community consultation and involvement in the rollout of the rapid transition to renewable energy and in the delivery of the Central West Arana Renewable Energy Zone, the state's first REZ. Emma strongly believes more emphasis must be placed on local knowledge, experiences and concerns to better protect the environment, local industries and communities. And finally, Jim Wilmot. Jim has long been a defender of rural and regional communities, standing up for personal freedoms and the rights of landowners. Nominated as Citizen of the Year and awarded the Premier's Award for services to rural and regional Queensland, his leadership has been widely recognised. A South Burnett beef producer, biosecurity specialist and Vice President of Property Rights Australia, Jim tirelessly advocates for fairer treatment of communities facing government and corporate overreach. He's committed to protecting property rights, freedom of choice, and the traditional values of family, mateship and common sense that have sustained generations of hardworking, pioneering Australians. If I could please have a round of applause for our panel speakers tonight. We have allocated 10 minutes for each panel speaker. A bell will sound at 1 minute left, indicating it is nearing time to wind up. If you have questions regarding what our speakers say, please submit them via the Slido app. There's a little instruction sheet on your seat. And if you wish to address them to someone in particular, just put their name at the start. And then also check which questions are there, and if you would like, you can upvote them by using the thumbs up tool. We will start tonight's panel discussion with Ian. Ian, the longevity of your family's cattle enterprise and Angus stud must provide you with a unique lens on how the beef industry has changed over the years and through political cycles. Can you share with us, with the ability of hindsight, some key milestones that the industry has either faced or overcome that has brought us to face the challenges we face today? What do you believe are the biggest concerns for the Australian red meat industry, and how can producers work together to drive positive change that will protect the future of real beef, livestock farming and the rural communities that are the lifeblood of the industry?
Okay, hello everyone. This is probably not my normal platform. Normally it's sitting down in the kitchen or something with my wife putting a phone in front of my face and me just ranting a little bit. But the rants are getting...
Sorry, I just don't think it's turned on.
Oh.
There you go.
Is that better?
Like that.
Is that better? Oh, there you go. So yeah, I mean, obviously in the intro, as you know, my family's on the same piece of land, or some of the same piece of land that we settled in 1832. So 190 years later, it was pristine till then. Then it was basically destroyed after that by 75 wind turbines that we look at when we open our back door. None of them on us. All of them actually on CSL blocks, so soldier settlement leases that were given to soldiers coming back from the war by the then government in the 50s. So a lot of those were on people's land that either did it for need or greed, basically. That's probably the main two things. So that's been probably the biggest change to the landscape at home. But what is more disturbing, and now having grandchildren on the same farm, is what is happening with the beef industry itself and beef cattle. And so it's looked after us a long time. The main challenges we've had have all been either markets, droughts, obviously economics in terms of where the dollar sits and those sorts of things. That's all changed. All of the things that we look at now are an attack on us for being environmental vandals. Now, I mean, I'm disgusted that we haven't been able to hit back on that, and that we're buying into, the authorities, MLA, and our Australian Angus Society in particular, bought, they're drinking the Kool-Aid. They're right into it. I think a reel went up on our website maybe 7 years ago where the CN30 thing came out with Meat and Livestock Australia. And I basically threw the magazine and it took out a light, and it was one of those sorts of deals. And so I got a call the next day from the lady who was in charge of that program, and I said, "Listen, I went to college, but did a little bit of marketing, but I know that Marketing 101 says that you can't sell a negative." And here we are actually branding a negative with CN30. Now, MLA's kicked that down the road and they still haven't walked away from it. They've just made it CN50, basically, but that's kind of a little bit on the quiet. It's not that obvious. So that they're still saying that we are an industry that is destroying the environment now. And so they couldn't win on carbon because carbon sequestration is, agriculture and in particular cattle and sheep, ruminants, are probably the key to carbon sequestration. Rotational grazing, rightly managed cattle and sheep, they're basically sucking carbon CO2 out of the atmosphere, putting it in the soil. Now, that was convenient to forget about because we needed to attack the industry, and the people attacking it I'll go into sort of now. But with the methane thing, now methane is a natural occurring component that has been in the environment basically forever, and it's got a short shelf life, 10, 12 years, and it comes back down and back into the soil. Now, so effectively that has been criticised as being what is killing the environment, with not taking into account the carbon sequestration at all, so one-sided accounting. Now, what's happened since then is that just this last May, I think it was, American Angus Association accepted a $4.85 million grant from the Jeff Bezos Earth Fund. Now, if you go to their website, you'll see that their aim is to remove cattle from the environment. And so they actually accepted that. But what they did is they gave it a flick pass back down here to Australia, and it went to AGBU to research this. Now, I rang one of the directors from America because I was over there. I was wanting to know. Basically, the American Angus producer, it was basically, excuse the French, a shitstorm. They were really upset about it because their board accepted this money without any notification or consultation. Which is so they paid the money. Now we accepted the money under the same terms. So I rang a director of the Angus Society here and said, "Where are we on this? I'm going to be asked questions." That's all I said. "Where are we on this?" And she said, this is great. We've committed 2,400 head of cattle to the research. It's all going to be done here. We're going to develop a more efficient cow because we are going to isolate which genetics are the ones that are producing more methane than others. Now, and I just said to her, "Listen, that's the first I've heard. Have you asked the other members?" "Well, no. I'm a director. I don't have to do that." She didn't say that, but that was kind of the backstory. And then after that, she backpedaled big time because I said, "Well, have you asked anyone?" And I said, "Well, perhaps you should." And it went from there. She's ghosted me now. But having said that, they took that money. If you look at the Jeff Bezos Earth Fund, apart from getting rid of cattle, Jeff Bezos' two of his big investments, one is lab-grown meat, the other one is vaccines. Now, the thing about the methane testing is that what if a methane-efficient cow is the most inefficient animal on your farm that's going to die or not getting calf? We don't know that. We're just going to test it, and if suddenly we find that that's the answer we want is not the answer we're going to get, then we're basically, all over Red Rover. The next thing in her text message it was that they're going to develop an EBV to highlight these cattle. And I said, well, won't that be a market force that if anyone without the high EBV for methane, won't they only buy those cattle? Doesn't it discount all the other ones? If everyone's going down this la land view that cattle are bad, isn't that going to wipe out the whole cattle industry by itself or create an animal that's no good? The other thing, though, that BASOS is heavily invested is poison, vaccine. It's not a vaccine. It's just something they're working on highlighting which microbes in the gut are the ones that contribute to methane production out of the animal. So we'll target that. Everyone will be forced to inject it. Billionaire gets all the money. The 4.8 million he probably got out of his ashtray if there was one in Tesla. So if you've got a situation where a billionaire is spending pocket change to try and push an agenda, you're in trouble. Now the problem with that also is that you kill those bugs out of the gut. What else gets killed? What sort of an animal are you left with? And it's the one type of thing that MLA's invested in it. Angus Australia's invested in it. It doesn't take much of a stretch to say that we're all forced to do it. And so this is the kind of attack that we're under for an animal that really is the answer to climate change, really. We've got, basically, it's a cycle. It's a cycle. The thing that the cities are, motor transport, power, all these things are all one way. They're all just carbon. They're not bringing back anything. They're not solving any problems. They're just blaming us. So I'm kind of, this is, as I said, it's not really my, I don't do this often, stand up in front of people, but it really just gets up my nose that we are being treated by the people who we pay. $5 a head, every animal you put through goes to this, goes to you guys getting basically thrown under the bus. So, really, I think in terms of having a voice and making it matter, if we all sit quietly, we deserve it. We deserve what we get. You guys are here, but we need to spread it further and get it out there. And ask the questions. MLA has gone very quiet on nearly everything. I don't know what they do anymore, but they still take my money. But I do recommend that everyone has a good look at some of the stuff that is being produced. The BASOS story is scary. I think there was, I can't remember the exact number, but it was over 50 jet planes went to his wedding in wherever it was, in the Greek Isles or something like that, and he has got no concern or about the environment. He's only concerned about trying to become the richest man if he's not already. So we've got to fight back on that, and we've got to tell people like the Angus Association, AGBU, we fund both of them. If you're an Angus Society member, you're funding the Angus Society. If you're an MLA member, you're funding AGBU, or even just through your taxes. It's all being funded by us. We have no say. They're just rolling in there and basically hammering us with no repercussions at all. All they do when I've raised it is go quiet. Everything just suddenly gets quiet, and they don't answer the phone. They don't. If I ring people now who I know are complicit in this, that's a waste of time. So, but anyway, I hope that gets my point of view across well enough.
Thank you very much, Ian. Next up we have Emma. Emma, your family has strong generational ties in the Dunedoo community and in agriculture. In recent years, you have tirelessly given your time, brain space and relentless efforts to raise awareness of what the CWO Res is and what it actually means for your area and ultimately for agriculture. Can you share why someone so passionate about sheep and cattle and your own farm would voluntarily give of your time the way you have to read, learn and fight against the New South Wales Planning Department, Energy Co and renewable energy giants over many years?
Thanks, Al. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I guess what happened to me was I fell down the CWO Res rabbit hole and haven't been able to find my way out. A little bit of background as to why that happened. So my property is split by the Golden Highway. 2017 or 18, we had then RMS, which is now Transport for New South Wales, came to us and basically said we want 30 metres on one side of the road and we want 40 metres on the other side of the road. And Dad and I sat there and went, well, hang on, what are you going to do with all this land? Oh, we need it for utilities and for the road upgrades, basically. And we didn't think that they managed what they had very well. So we kind of said, well, no, we don't think that's good enough. You know, you can have what you actually need for the upgrades. And in that first meeting, they sat there and they said, oh, well, you know, it's really too bad for you because even if you say no, we'll just take it because we can use compulsory acquisition. So that was I don't know, we both sort of sat there and went, well, hang on a minute, like, easy tiger, can we just talk about this? And there was none of that. It was very, very much, oh no, well, too bad, so sad. So we spent 18 months fighting that. We actually did quite nicely out of it in the end. They didn't take as much land as they wanted to originally. We got new fencing, we got a new lane, but that was probably, well then, it was the worst 18 months of my life. So when I heard that landowners in my area were being given the same sort of treatment by EnergyCo, which is the Energy Corporation of New South Wales, who were rolling out the transmission project at home, so Dunedoo, Casslis, Elong kind of area, Golgong. I couldn't sit back and let them go through what we went through without a little bit of inside knowledge, because, you know, when someone comes to you and says, even if you don't like it, we're going to take it, when it's a government authority, it's pretty scary for you as your little old farmer who's just doing your own thing to come up against that. So basically that's where it started. And here we are 5 years later, I think, still being steamrolled, maybe just a little bit slower than they imagined at first. But yeah, it's been very much a steamroll effect on our communities, the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone, from whether it be New South Wales Government in the Department of Planning, whether it be EnergyCo, or whether it be the renewable energy developers, we seem not to have any say. You know, there's all this BS about consultation and engagement, but there is very little chance for anyone to actually make a difference once it is decided that this is happening. So yeah, it's taken a lot of time. I have a lot of people say to me, you know, great work. And when I say to them, well, you know, do you want to come along for the ride? Oh no, you're doing a great job and you've got the time. I've made the time. I have a full-time job running a business. I would rather be drenching sheep and treating blowflies, to be honest with you. That seems like fun these days, which is a little bit concerning for me, I suppose. But yeah, that's where we're at, and I just got to the point that I couldn't watch my community be steamrolled without standing up and going, hang on a minute, we need to think about what this is actually going to do to the people on the ground.
Can you describe how you found working with the state's processes and legislation in regards to the planning and the delivery of this national energy Trojan horse, the Central West Orana REZ? And what do you recommend for landowners freshly facing either a renewable project or a forced transmission line?
I don't think the words that I could use to describe it are fit for public consumption generally. It's tough going. You're working within parameters that government is dictating that this is happening. So what you're working with is departments that are dictated to that this is happening. So you've got very little scope to make any kind of changes or movements. And I think part of the problem is that renewable energy developers have been scoping in our area for probably 20 years. None of us knew that then, except for the people that they were sitting around the kitchen table with, making deals with. The rest of us had absolutely no idea. So I think that's part of the problem. You've got developers dividing the community before you even know it's happening. So that's one big problem, and I don't know how to get around that, because some people are happy to take the money. Some people need the money. Like, I understand that. It must be difficult when you've got kids to get through school, or you've got a massive debt, and someone comes and sits at your kitchen table and says, well, here's however many $1 million. All you have to do is give us a bit of land. Like, that must be really difficult. I get it. But what you're seeing from the other side is neighbours or transmission. There is no choice. And that's not fair. But those neighbours and those landowners affected by transmission, they're collateral damage, and it's not fair. But you can't get that through to the government, nor can you get through the impacts. I mean, we've been fighting for 4.5 years to get issues addressed so that when this all started to roll out, there wouldn't be huge impacts on our community, on our services, on our roads, all of those sorts of things, on our workforce. And now we're in construction phase, and all of those things are coming to fruition without any mitigation measures. So we're kind of up shit creek without a paddle, really. Like, there's no way that you can get those things through to people that aren't on the ground. And that's half the problem. You talk to people that are sitting in an office in Sydney, or they're the ones that have drawn the lines on the map, or they're the ones that have conceived of some sort of project, and they haven't come and talked to the people on the ground. And local knowledge means nothing to these people. Absolutely nothing. You can tell them till you're blue in the face where the water runs when it gets wet, and they'll tell you that, oh no, our modelling says it's over there. And you can stand there and say, no, it actually runs here. No, don't believe you. So that's what we're dealing with. So going forward, I guess my advice would be, if someone knocks on your door and you are not interested, do not engage with them at all. If there is no interest on your part, close the door and tell them to bugger off. If you are interested and that's your business, I suggest you get good legal advice and really good financial advice, because the tax issue is going to be a major issue for a lot of people that they haven't even thought of yet. But to have professionals in your corner, and professionals that have experience in that space, and they are becoming more and more because it's rolling out more and more, that is really important. And make whoever you're talking to pay for it, because that's their business. I guess the other thing is, talk to your neighbours, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Don't stop talking to them, because that's when we end up with the problem of fractured communities. And that's where we are at home at the moment. You've got the haves, you've got the have-nots, you've got the wants, you've got the no, don't want anything to do with it. And so we've got people that are family, generational friends, neighbours, that will cross the other side of the street so they don't have to talk to each other anymore. And I don't think you can fix that. Like, that is the kind of wound that doesn't heal. So, you know, I think we all know that small towns run on volunteers, organisations, then often it's the same people doing all of the 15 different organisations too. So when you fracture a community like that, and you've got people that, no, I won't talk to Joe Smith and I'm not working with him on that committee, everything falls apart. And that's the road that we're going down with dividing all of our communities. And so just keep talking. Just keep talking to everyone. It doesn't matter whether you agree or not, just keep talking to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. For those of you that seen some of the slides flicking through before we started, there were a couple of slides of projects that are in this area, in the Upper Hunter. And unfortunately, for many of us and our communities, the first we hear of it is if we keep up with what's on the planning portal when it says CIS issued and these projects pop up. It is, like Emma said, only those that are personally and financially involved that have any knowledge, and it's very rare that the projects will come knocking on a community door and actually offer you involvement. So if you do feel like you would like to follow that along and what is coming to your council area, the project planning portal, the New South Wales Government portal, you can sort that by council area, and I would suggest following along there. Okay, Jim. Jim, you're joining us tonight from Property Rights Australia. You're also a farmer, a former public servant, and you recently ran for the Senate in Queensland. Could you please share with us a little about your story, the sliding door milestones along the way, how you came to be part of PRA, and why you decided to run for the Senate?
Yep, is that working? Yep. No worries, yep. From Queensland, red dirt country where Joe comes from, Kingaroy, just there off a beef place. Now, I was fortunate enough when I grew up, quite a while ago now, that I was brought up with the traditional values, and some of you might recognise these values: the love of family, your community, to give everyone a fair go, and a bit of common sense and mateship. They were like a tapestry of like threads that made up our community, and each one of those threads told a story of our community: the resilience, working with your neighbours, standing up for your mate, going to, you know, your local cricket matches out in the bush, playing for one of your pubs in your community, cheering on your mates, or going to your Saturday night dances that you used to have in the halls around here. And that's why I grew up with those values. And I really loved agriculture, and I still do. And that's why I wanted to be involved in agriculture. We used to have the DPI, as you guys down here, there used to be the farmer's friend. And that's why I decided to go to university and join the public service. And I got posted way out west into the Simpson Desert, releasing calicivirus for the rabbits, fighting locusts at Blackall, Longreach, Emerald, fighting mouse plagues, making sure our biosecurity system was there, working in partnership with our farmers and our regional communities. That's why I was there. But then I made the silly decision to go to head office in Brisbane. And that's where I saw what I didn't like. It changed though. This was back in 1999. Beattie was there. He actually gave me that award for the Premier's Award. And that's when the Vegetation Management Act came into play. Remember the Vegetation Management Act? You'd have similar here. And the way they put that act together and the way, with a lack of consultation, it was just blood-curdling. I remember sitting down with the Director General of Natural Resources and Mines. I was quite high up, a couple from the top. And he said, Wilmot, yep. He said, you know, we're going to start to do things differently. He said, we're going to go from a regional service delivery model, which I liked, farmer's friend, getting out there, doing things with farmers. You'd welcome a public servant onto your property back then. He said, we're going to move away from that, and we're going to go to a compliance, strategic legislation and policy development model. And guess what's happened to a lot of our government departments? That's exactly what's happened. Look at what has happened to our property rights. They have been eroded over time. Now, property rights are the bedrock in a society. Any society, prosperous society, would have legal protection of your property rights. But every piece of legislation that comes in slowly takes those property rights away. So really, one of the sliding door moments was for me that, look, I couldn't work in the public service anymore when I seen how policy was developed. Like, we had senior managers there saying, You know, we were better off with landowners weren't there in this piece of country. It'd be a lot easier to develop policy. I was out of there, mate. I was back to my regional roots. I found it disgusting. And that's why I've joined, like I've been in a number of groups like Green Shirts Australia, you probably haven't heard of them down here, Property Rights Australia, because we stand up for your property rights. The overreach of government and their corporations. So that's how I came to join Property Rights, out of sheer frustration. Why I ran for Senate? Again, it was on the basis of protecting people's property rights, both in an urban environment, but particularly in rural and regional Australia, where we are being robbed of our property rights. So yeah, that's my story.
An ever-growing burden of restrictive regulations shackle our farms, businesses and industry, and the loss of property and water rights is another big concern among landowners. From your experience, where did we as a nation go wrong, and how best can we stand up to protect our property rights and our rural industries now?
Okay, we went wrong, I don't know what year it was, but we went wrong when we looked at property rights being, you know, when we looked at farmers being like partners in prosperity and rural communities with government, to problems that must be managed. We're getting managed all the time. We're just a problem for government. Evil environmental vandals, we're being called. Look at the way policy is developed. Australia is at war with its own industries. We're destroying the fishing industry. We're destroying the timber industry. And we are trying to destroy the beef industry. It's not market forces. It's not weather. Environmental policy is being made externally to Australians. It is being made by these non-government organisations like World Wildlife Fund. It is being made with us signing up through conventions and international agreements. We're not making the policy. We got World Wildlife Fund, they used to be all cuddly about pandas, storytelling, how terrible it is. Now they're just armed to the teeth. They are legislative lawfare. That is what's happening. Our property rights are seen as the bedrock of society. They should be, from all of us. Who owns property here? Put your hand up. It's dear to us, isn't it? It's a fundamental. If we don't have property rights, we have nothing. But, you know, property rights now are seen as a bit of conditional. Like some politicians, not all, some politicians treat them as a bit of an inconvenience. You know, wind them back with a bit of, you know, that's not part of our ideology. It's a bit selfish to own property. Or some signing up to some international agreements which takes away your property rights. It's got to stop. Every new piece of red and green tape loads landowners up. But nothing ever falls off the end of the ledger, does it? More and more legislation. More and more erosion of our property rights. So we've got to stand up for our property rights. And if you look at Property Rights Australia, that's why we have Stand Your Ground. We've actually taken, you love this, Beattie to court. Because when the Vegetation Management Act came in 1999, he sent out all these maps to landowners and they said, oh, beauty, we can clear this land. They cleared it and guess what? The maps were wrong. Beattie took 11 people to court. So we took Beattie to court. And we won 8 out of 11. And so we are here to stick up for your property rights. We've got a fighting fund, that's where all our membership funds go into, and we will help you stand up against government overreach, the corporations. We are there to support you, so please grab a membership form tonight. We are Australia-wide, there's 600s of us. We don't receive any government funding, and it's true what Ian said. Like a lot of the industry groups, you know, they practice, it's the art of appeasement. So, you know, they work with governments, they take a bit of money to write some handbooks and that, And they say, well, we stopped this legislation, part of it for coming through, but the whole intent of the legislation still remains the same. It's one step forward, two steps back. We are going over an edge of a cliff, but it's not all bad news. The thing that we've found, because Property Rights Australia has been around for 23 years, we have found community unity, and that's one-on-one landholders standing up shoulder to shoulder. If you're getting tried to trample with renewables, with other land use conflicts, look, there's heaps of your water rights are getting taken away, the vegetation maps change every week. You've got to be a scientist to keep up with it. Water reforms, trespass by activists. Geez, I could write a book on it. There's heaps of stuff that are taking away our property rights. You've got to have a unified community because unity brings power. And with power, you can fight back. Developers don't like it. They don't like seeing bad stories put up about communities that got themselves together. They don't want this here. There's no social licence. There's no community acceptance. We've also, you can't just say, no, we don't want them here, or no, we don't want this bit of legislation. You've got to have evidence. You've got to gather evidence to say this is why. And I take note of Steve Nowakowski's evidence that he gave recently that threw Bowen under the bus. Excuse the pun. Come on, tell the truth, Bowen. We've got to present. That's why I like Peter Ridd's stuff, like standing up. We need evidence. All information that is used for legislation and regulation should be put through some quality assurance filter. Because guess what? Ideology of political parties tends to just bend some of the data to suit their ideology, yeah? We need good politicians. We need good community engagement and pressure. But we don't only just need politicians that want to look good, and there's plenty of them, isn't there? Look at me, look at here, look at this post. I'm opening this, I'm patting the baby on the head. We need politicians that want to do good. And I say all the politicians here today have stood up for their communities and want to do good. And that's about all I've got time for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the panel members for sharing your insights and experiences with us tonight. We mustn't forget that change starts with all of us. If you would like any more information on any of the organisations here tonight, please visit their tables and displays at the end and ask how you can get involved. Thank you to all of the elected representatives for your willingness to participate in this next section, the question and answer session, alongside our panel speakers. I would like to now invite you up to join the panel speakers for this session. Please join me in welcoming New South Wales Upper House members, John Ruddock, MLC, Libertarian Party, Mark Banasiak, MLC, Shooters, Fishers, Farmers, Scott Barrett, MLC, New South Wales Nationals. I haven't yet had the opportunity to meet, but are councillors Adam Williamson and Alison McPhee here to join us? Could you please join our question and answer panel? Thank you. Yep. And finally, our federal member for New England, Barnaby Joyce from the Nationals. Okay, we have a few rules to keep us on track. The aim of this question and answer is to provide factual, grounded responses that might enable actionable and positive industry and community outcomes. We are using Slido tonight, which the paper was on your chair, so pull out your phones and log in through your browser to slido.com or scan the QR code. If you need any help, I've got a couple of young tech heads that might come around and help you with your phone if you need help, so maybe pop your hand up. We do have a little bit of difficulty with roving mics, so if you could have a go at Slido, that'd be great. We've got 2 example questions already there. If you would like to have a go and and answer those questions, that would be great. The first one is, how far have you travelled? So I'll let you answer those two questions while I keep reading out the rules to our panel. The question should be clear and industry or community focused, and ideally addressed to the speaker you wish to ask. The answers should stick to substance. Answers should be concise and hopefully under 2 minutes, evidence-based, and directly address the question with no grandstanding, theatrics or lengthy speeches, although I don't expect that to happen here tonight. We'll avoid sledging and personal insults, and we'll focus on policies and solutions, and we will stay respectful and curious. For those asking questions, if you would like to ask a follow-up question after hearing the answer from the panel, please raise your hand and we'll try and have that follow-up question also answered. Okay, just give me 1 second while I switch to the live Slido screen. Okay, has everyone managed to answer the two polls? How far you travelled tonight and which industry you are from? And don't forget to upvote your questions that you would like answered. This is your chance to prioritise what we talk about. Okay, so our first question, I haven't actually got this directed to anyone, but we might just see who would like to take this answer first. MLA, LLS, NFF and other bodies that are meant to work and advocate for us, that we fund, are no longer working and advocating for us. What can we do to change this? Who would like to have a stab at that one? Ian will. There we go.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Okay, well, basically I believe that we need an advocacy fund directly attributed out of our levy money so that it's there to use for advocacy that can be questioned, challenged. You know, when it came to the CN30 thing, they actually admitted that they were wrong to me when it first came out. Then they dropped it not that long ago, but they've still kicked the can down the road. They're now calling it CN50. But we have no advocacy. We're basically still admitting we're the villains. So we need to actually have money put aside to actually advocate, promote a positive image for the sheep and meat industry and the cattle industry.
Would anyone else like to have a go at that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, look, I guess the other way is to change from within. If you're not happy with what the MLA is doing or what LLS or NFF are doing, be the change. If you can't be the change, by changing board members and changing committee members, set up other groups, because that will keep those groups honest. Having been through that in a former life with running associations, if you're not happy with that association, change it from within. If you can't do that, set up other groups, because it's not about one voice mattering. It's all voices, and governments like dealing with just one voice because they're easy to buy off.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, the next question. To the 3 New South Wales Upper House members, we have a state election coming up in 2027. How do your parties actually select your lead Upper House candidates? We'll start with John and we'll work our way across. Thanks, John.
Well, in the Libertarian Party, all our members get to have a vote on who the candidate will be, so we're proud of our democratic ethos.
Yeah, I wouldn't say every member of our party gets to have a vote, but every member of our party gets to just put their name forward if they want to be considered as the lead candidate or as any candidate for the upper house election or any lower house election too.
Yeah, similar. I guess a bit similar to John's. We have from the National Party, each local area sends a representative to what we call our Central Council. That's our governing body, and that is the body that then elects who our representatives are on that ballot.
Thanks, Scott. This is a question with an opportunity for anyone to answer. How can we get more people into roles in public institutions that seem to lack impact, respect and rewards compared to private companies?
Can I pad that out, Sal? I asked that question and it didn't give me enough room to really adequately ask the question.
Yes.
John Anderson was speaking about the lack of trust in our...
Can I give you a microphone, please, Tim?
Can you not hear me? Yeah, sorry. Sorry for that. So John Anderson was talking about the lack of trust in our public institutions and the people that are representing us, which I do agree with, and I think it's showing in state, federal, and also our institutions that are representing us from a lobby type group activities. And what seems to be happening is a split between what the membership wants and what the executive is doing. And when I talk about the executive, I'm talking about the politicians that are representing us. Now, I'm not talking about the guys in the room here, by the way. You guys all do stand up very well for us. But what I'm finding, or what our community is seeing, we've had the similar issues to Emma and Sal in the Central West with regard to transmission lines, is a fight against government and a fight against the bureaucracy that works under the government. And we're finding that no one gives us that voice and really wants to adequately represent that, from our state members who actually aren't in power, to our federal member who actually isn't in power either, but now has a bigger voice than he used to have. Well, he's always had a big voice, but fuck, yeah, he's using it more now. So I just want to know, what seems to me to be the problem is that there's not enough younger people coming through with conviction about wanting to do these jobs and get into these roles. Now, 20 years ago, I would have looked at it and gone, not a chance. There's more chance for me to make $1 out of ag than I will being a politician or a lobby group member or something like that. And I want to know what you guys think, how we should get the next generation in there to make a difference.
Who's up? Thank you.
I think the first place you start is stop your kids hating Australia. I just can't stand it. Every time kids come home from school, apparently our nation has done something evil. We're evil people. We dispossess people. We're always told, or the kids are told, to look down on their nations, and then later on, when they go to represent their nation, they say, well, why would it? We're a terrible people. We're a terrible place. And they're ashamed of our country. And we've got to turn that round. And it's not going to happen through the Teachers Federation, I can assure you that. So you better do it yourself. You've got to reinforce with your kids how this is an incredible country, how you are so blessed, you are so lucky to be born here. If you want to see what the alternatives look like, go for a holiday to Hyderabad in India. Have a look at that and see if you want to live there, or go to the Central African Republic, or have a crack at some of the other countries, even go to Europe, most of Europe. And once we get people loving this country again, I think we're going to have a better chance of getting them not only to serve in politics, but even serve in our Defence Force, serve in Rotary, serve in St Vincent de Paul, basically give back to this nation. And I reckon that's back to you. You got to do it.
Well, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, which is that they are lying to you about global warming. 20 years ago, Al Gore, the Pied Piper, he tricked the whole world, okay? And our parliaments, our newspapers, our academic institutions, and all these organisations you're talking about, their leadership is completely convinced that global warming is happening. Now, a lot of good people out there, even some of the speakers tonight, said, oh, well, look, it's happening, but maybe it's being exaggerated. No, it's just a 100% lie. Do you know how many factors there would be to influence the atmospheric temperature? Probably 200. We probably understand very few of them at this stage. And they're saying there's a little temperature control switch called carbon dioxide. And all these little kids come out of university, ambitious, they think they're doing the right thing, so they get involved in the National Farmers Federation, all these other organisations, right? We have to cut the head off the snake. President Trump, okay, he comes out there and says point blank, it's all crap. Now, you know what, we've had 8 prime ministers in the last sort of 25 years. I'm disappointed with a lot of them, okay, but obviously the 2 best are John Howard, who did take the guns away from us and other bad things, got us into wars in the Middle East, but still he left us with no debt, you know, and basically he was good, and Tony Abbott, who wasn't there long enough. Now, they're the 2 best that we've had, right? And those 2 guys are way too smart to believe in global warming. Privately, they say it's all crap. When Kevin Rudd moved into the Lodge after the Howards moved out after 20 years, you could imagine the Lodge would be impeccably cleaned by professional cleaners. But the Howards left behind one thing. This was in Kevin Rudd's memoirs. They left behind in the DVD player. That would be a very easy thing to forget. There's a DVD in the DVD player. What was John and Jeanette Howard watching? The Great Global Warming Swindle, which was a very good documentary saying it's all crap. So the Howards were watching it at home, but Howard went along with it out of cowardice. Tony Abbott. You know, there was a video of Tony Abbott when he's opposition leader, and he says at a pub in Victoria, he says to some punter, he says, oh, climate change is all crap. Then he ran around for the next 3 years saying, oh, no, the audio was wrong. I didn't really believe it. Okay, now since he's left office, Tony Abbott has given magnificent speeches saying it's all crap. Well, it's a bit late, Tony. So what we need to do is we need to cut the head off the snake. They are 100% lying to you, and it's infecting everything.
Okay, so John skipped to the next question, so I'm going to read the question and then I'll let the other 2 MLCs answer this. To the 3 New South Wales Upper House members, what is your party's stance on climate change and why? What do you think we should be doing, if anything?
Well, I probably won't use the word crap as much as John, but yeah, it's garbage. What should we be doing about it? Well, I don't believe in it, so I don't think we need to be doing anything about it. Look, I think we should get out of the way of people that are managing their land, managing their own environment. We need good, reliable, cheap power, and I don't care what anyone says, you don't get that from renewables when, what's the Central West Arana Res up to now in terms of cost? What, $5-something billion? Transmission. If you don't think that's going to end up on your power bills, I've got a Harbour Bridge to sell you. It's just ridiculous to say that renewables are going to be cheap power when you look at the cost of rolling them out. Every technology has a cost. It's just that the government doesn't want to be honest about what the cost of this renewable rollout will be. And I think we need to demand that honesty and transparency about it.
Thanks, Mark. Can you pass to Scott, please?
Yeah. Thank you. The big argument about climate change is so we manage the environment better and what difference that might make or otherwise, but it's about managing the environment better. Farmers have been doing that in this country for 200 years. Not because Greta Thunberg told them that that's what they should do, but because farmers know that the best way they can feed their families is to look after their land, and in doing that they're going to feed the world. So constantly blaming farmers for climate change, I think, is a very easy narrative to sell if you live in the North Shore. But it's actually farmers that have been for 200 years progressively getting better at looking after our land and looking after the environment, and more government needs to step out of the way and let farmers do that.
Thanks, Scott.
Can I just say about what our party believes? Okay, so look, the Libertarian Party
30 seconds.
doesn't actually have a position on it. Okay, what we say is, the Libertarian Party, just so you understand, is we don't just believe in small government, we hate government. We're very distrustful of government, okay? Now, what our party's policy is that we don't get into the science. I might, but the party doesn't. We say, look, just get that government the hell out of the energy market and let whatever's going to work in the free market work. It might be nuclear. We know it's going to be coal and gas for a very, very long time. Now, maybe it will be renewables if they can fund themselves. Now, I don't think they can, so it won't be. But if they can, all power to them.
Thanks, John. We've got a couple of other questions which I will move on to, but I would encourage you all to type some more questions in. We've got these guys who have come a long way and I'd love to get the most out of them. If you'd like to address some local issues to our councillor on the panel. Do you want to have it? Yep, sure. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm on local council, but I'm also a teacher, and I help run the family farm. So I've got my finger in a few pies here. Okay, is that better? Now, I'm in my 50s, so I'm old. But I remember when I was growing up, we were all going to die from nuclear war, right? Before that, there was an ice age. So then we had the nuclear war, but that didn't happen. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis at one point as well. And I remember as a child, every night on TV, on the news, there was something about Russia and the US and how we're all going to die. We then had global warming, and now we have climate change. Now, we have a lot more people on the planet, so of course we're going to be making an impact. But as a local council member, I got involved because I wanted to make a difference, but I get my hands tied just like everybody else. And we have all of these major projects thrust upon us as a council. We have no say in it. We have to agree or disagree to get money from them. You know, we had a voluntary agreement, so we'll get money for every turbine they put somewhere. But we do not have any power, even as a local government. I vote against them, which makes me look like I don't want the money, but I feel I have to take a stand. We have people coming to our farm this week saying, oh, by the way, we're putting transmission lines on your farm. And apparently my father said they make sure that when they come, they reverse in, so if they're unfriendly, if you get unfriendly welcome, they can get off the farm as soon as possible. So they know what they're doing is wrong, right? I don't think we can say all these things, but the only way we're going to change this narrative is if we make the city people understand it's not right. So we have to make it about them. How we do that is a really good question. I'd love to have a think tank about how we can do that. The only way we're going to change this is if they feel it'll be about them. I'd love to have a wind farm in Sydney Harbour. I'm not sure how that will go. But until they start having these projects and these farms and these solar panels in places where it affects them, they have no right to put them upon us. Zali Steggles, well, that won't work because they'll blame us for that. Sally Steggles she fought so that they didn't have any wind turbines in her electorate, yet she's up in Nimbin saying, what's the problem? Why don't we have them? We need to change the narrative on how these city people look at us as the providers of their electricity. So it's not about whether it's about climate change, it's about having them see that it's actually going to affect them. That's the only way we're going to get this to change.
To Scott, you've been clear you don't blame farmers for climate change, but that doesn't answer the question as to your position on it and what should be done. That's a tricky one, Scott.
So what should be done on climate change? Look, I think we will constantly be getting better at managing the environment. And whether that's about climate change or just protecting the environment, I don't really care. Obviously, we want to protect our rivers. We want healthy rivers. We want healthy mountains. We want healthy environments that we can go to and enjoy. That doesn't have to be about climate change. That can be just about protecting the country. And the healthier our river systems are, the healthier our farming systems are going to be as well. So, yes, we are going to constantly be getting better at managing our environment. But does that mean that that's specifically about climate change? If we manage this river better, is that going to make a difference to the global temperature? Unlikely. But that doesn't mean we don't look after our river system, as farmers and rural communities have been doing for hundreds of years.
Scott, could you pass the microphone to Barnaby? Barnaby, would you like to add to that on your position? You've been very vocal recently, and I'm sure the room would like to hear how that sits with the Nationals as a whole.
Yeah, well, vocal enough to put myself on the backbench. Don't think it's just about the Nationals. It goes through all parties. Look, the first thing is stop calling them bloody renewables. They're intermittents. There's nothing renewable about them, okay? You're using the nomenclature of the Greens and the lefties when you call them renewables. They are not farms, for God's sake. They don't grow carrots or spuds or sheep. They're not farms and they're not renewables. They're intermittent power precincts, they're swindle factories. Call it for what it is. The reason they're there is they're a rolled gold annuity for billionaires. They're a rolled gold. They get a guaranteed return. Check everything I say, make sure I'm not a liar, right? This is the guarantee, the capacity investment scheme. It is secret, commercial and confidence. Gives them a guaranteed return of 90% of their income, even if they don't produce an electron. An electron. I would like to get 90% guarantee of the turn-off of beef off my place. If I got it, I will buy every damn cattle place in northern New South Wales. And that's what they're doing. Every available inch that they can get one of these things on, they're building them on, right? Now, to go back to the question, see, they use this sort of religious thing. Are you a believer? If you're not a believer, you're a denier. It's all this religious crap. Because that's how they try and argue this stuff. It's this quasi-religious process that you're a bad person if you don't agree with them. Well, park that rubbish as well. Now, here's the next thing. Okay, but where are you on climate change? Well, I'll tell you one thing I absolutely know. See, this is something you can always argue. I've had a really bloody good look at the sky. Had a look at it today. I was doing cattle work. Had a good look at the sky. And when I'm in the chamber, I had a bloody good look at Chris Bowen. And I've come to the conclusion that Chris Bowen can't change the sky. That is remarkable. And why this dweeb destroys our nation. Remember, even when you grab their gospel, their religious gospel, the deniers and the believers, and it's all the kids are going to instantaneously combust if you don't believe their bullshit. When you actually look at it, it talks about the world participates in this. The world is not. Trump is out. China was never in. India was never in. Indonesia is never in. South America's not in. Southeast Asia's not in. Africa's not in. Germany, the actual union movement, is now protesting against net zero. Both two sides of the three in England want to get out of net zero, so it's not just a European thing. Then you go to the alternate governments in Europe; they want to get out. So who the hell is in this thing? Who's left? And why are they doing it? Okay, now this is maybe it's a sort of paranoia of me. It goes back to what you said at the start. The belief that the state has primacy over the individual, when really the individual is supposed to have primacy over the state. And this is a classic way. If you don't give the state more power, your kids will all die tomorrow.
Thank you. The next question, I might start with our panel members. What's the best way to tackle climate alarmism? Should we be incrementalist or challenge the entire narrative? Jim, do you want to have a stab at that? And whoever asked that question, if you want someone particular to answer, just sing out.
No, I'm with John Ruddick. I just think it's a whole lot of garbage, and we should be brave enough and bold enough to stand up against that narrative. Don't be scared. We're not we're lemmings to the cliff at the moment. You've got to be brave and bold and stand up and hit them between the eyes with the evidence. There's plenty there. It's just a total cult faction and ideology that we need to put a stop to.
I'm fully 100% on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Another one for Scott. Do you and the New South Wales Nationals think reducing carbon dioxide emissions helps manage the environment?
Someone's having fun out there. Look, there's bigger brains working on this than me, and I'm just going to refer back to my last answer. Yes, we need to manage our environment better. I don't think anyone would argue that. If we do argue that, we're going to destroy the country and we're going to have nothing left for our kids. So we need to be doing things better all the time. And as I said, farmers have been doing better at that. So, I don't know.
Is reducing carbon dioxide emissions helpful?
Asking if he believes in climate change.
Yeah, well, he votes in favour of climate change. That's why he's being evasive. He votes in favour of climate change.
Do you want to share any thoughts with the room, Scott?
Oh. Yeah, but look, what we do is not going to change the climate. We can put in whatever laws we want. It's not going to change the world environment. But I don't think that means we shouldn't be doing better for the environment. But I'm not suggesting that it is farmers that are doing the bulk of the damage to the environment. I think if you could somehow measure damage to the environment, you weighed up what Scone's doing versus Sydney's doing, I know where most of the damage is going to come from. So are we going to change the overall global temperature by what we do here in New South Wales? Absolutely not. So does that go to answer your question? Or?
Well, I didn't say it was my question.
Yeah, no.
I said the previous one was my question, but yeah.
We've got a question here for Sandra, but I do have this on my run sheet, so we might just leave that for a little moment and go to the next one. We are sitting in a room full of voices that want to be heard, and we're all saying the same thing. How do we make ourselves heard? Any volunteers? John. And then,
Well, look,
and then Barnaby.
You know, when you're a politician in your office, all day, every day, you've got people coming to see you with something that the government's done that's really bad and they want you to help fix it. And we try and help fix it where we can, okay? But I look at them and I don't say it, but I think to myself, I say, okay, so you're really cranky at the government, but never in your life have you thought about joining a political party, okay? So, and you, as a member of a political party, you can choose who's in Parliament because the Parliaments are very powerful. They shouldn't be as powerful as they are, but they are powerful. So people say, it's like they've left it till the very end where the government's affected them. Then they say, oh, the government's terrible, help me, help me, help me. And I'm thinking, okay, look, why didn't you get involved? If you like the Liberal Party, join the Liberal Party. Do you like the National Party, join the National Party. Like the Libertarian Party, shoot us, whatever. But if you're involved, okay, you can have a say on it. You might even be a member of Parliament yourself, okay? You can be a candidate yourself. Now, the New South Wales National Party State Council recently had a meeting and 70% of the members said, yeah, we're over net zero. We're over, I would have gone further than that, but 70% said over, but their state members keep voting for it. Who gave us the res? The Liberals and the Nationals. The Labors just continue it on. And I get up there, Mark gets up there, we talk about it, but the Liberals and the Nationals continue to vote in favour of it, even though their membership doesn't. So the answer to this question is simple. Get involved with your favourite political party and help make sure that we've got better members of Parliament.
So every year we have a National General Assembly. So as a local councillor, I go down to Canberra and we always hope to do that during sitting time. And so we have conferences where we get spoken at by urban councils about how we're doing everything wrong. Then we go to Canberra, we go to Parliament House and we try to meet with politicians. And this is where we lobby for advocacy, we lobby for money, we lobby for grants. So this time it just seemed that sitting changed dates. So there was no sitting week. So we went down there, there was not one Labor candidate or one Labor politician willing to meet with us. They weren't there. Even though there were thousands of councillors from around the country to go there and to lobby and to advocate. The only people who met with us were national members. They opened up their party room to us and they lobbied for us. So we got involved, I got involved, and that just goes to show how little regard the Labor Party has for us. Not just national grown councils, because we are in a national seat, both state and federal, but Labor seats. The federal government, the current government, has no concern for the grassroots, what's going on. So if you want change, you have to change the government, right? I don't care who it is, just change the government. The second thing, and I'm really uplifted tonight because we've got people here who are creating these agents, these groups who are actually going to start a movement, because I think we're getting to a point where we're sick of it. We've had enough. And when country people have enough, they start doing things. So we need to start kind of working on with this. We have to start continuing to work with our local members to make sure that we are getting heard. Because at the moment, even as a local council member, I do not have anyone I can contact in the current government to get anything, right? Moriarty, she's our state member for agriculture. Not once has she come up to Scone. We've asked her several times to come up. Not once has she come up. She'll Zoom with us. Maybe one of her staffers will have a meeting with us. I don't even think she's left Sydney. that's the lack of regard that this current government has for us. So we need to change the government, and we need to start getting our people and our community organisations. CWA, who I'm a member of, my mother's a member of, we can advocate through them, but we need to get these organisations to start advocating for us. Okay.
Thank you, Alison.
Thanks, Laura. Look, I'll give you an example of where things changed. Once upon a time, if there would be people in this room right now with COVID, without a shadow of a doubt. And it was only a couple of years ago where you'd all have to now go home and isolate yourself, lock yourself up like a pigeon for 14 days. And you weren't allowed to go to a park. And when we look back at it now, that was patently absurd. That was insane, right? But how did it change? I'll tell you how it changed, because one day at Parliament House in Canberra, I looked out the front in Federation Mall. You can always have a sort of a where people are. If there's just a little crowd at the front of Federation Mall, don't worry about it. If it goes sort of halfway back to Old Parliament House, maybe go out and have a listen to it. If it goes all the way to Old Parliament House, listen very closely, because that's getting serious. Well, this thing started at the front door of New Parliament House, went down Federation Mall to Old Parliament House, went around Old Parliament House, down Constitution Avenue, over the bridge to the other side of Canberra, and into the park. And you know what happened almost that day? Laws started changing, because you've got to find the primal fear. You know what the primal fear is? Doesn't matter what colour politicians are, forget all about that. You know, who's who in the wooden canoe, I mean, that happens at every meeting. The primal fear all politicians have is losing their job. That is the primal fear. And when they see a huge crowd arrive, they think, is my next job stacking shelves at Bunnings? Because that's about where some of them literally end up. Now, you're not going to create that primal fear in any politician if this is where your upsetness stops. If the only place you're going to get upset tonight is Scone Bowling Club, congratulations, you've all wasted your time. And I've said the same thing to Walker, the Walker Bowling Club. If this is where we all get upset, Wooloman Hall, this is the only place we're going to get upset, Cattle Creek, Central Queensland, heading up there in a couple of weeks' time, right down to Robben Island. I see Bob Brown and Christine Mill are now on board with us. Gippsland, Orana. If the only place you're going to get upset is in your local hall, you've just wasted your time. Should have stayed home watching telly. Find a good movie. Complete waste of time tonight. If you can get yourself organised after leaving here and arrive at the front of Macquarie Street, that's where Parliament House is, make a huge racket, or get yourself down to Canberra in big numbers, we're going to start changing things, because you're going to create that primal fear. And remember, but it's really over to you. I've tried this, setting up reckless renewables, all that sort of stuff, try to get this thing moving, but it's not our problem, it's yours.
Yeah, look, I would just echo what Barnaby and John have said. Like, I don't think I've got any special power being in Parliament. I'm a privileged position to be in that place and do the most bizarre job in the world. But I get my power, and John and Barnaby, we all get our power from you. It's those crowds in front of Parliament chanting, saying change or else. That's where we get our power from, not from any special, anointment from the Governor General in terms of being an elected member. So, yeah, you need to get angry, you need to get vocal, and you need to get beyond your local community, because that's the only thing that people understand. If you want change, stop voting for Coke or Pepsi, because they won't change unless you force them to change.
Thank you. I'm going to just skip questions just because of what Mark finished off with there, and this is to the minor party members. Why not join a mainstream party and make change from inside rather than create more divisions on the right?
Well, look, you know why Australia is still a great country, and it is a great country. Okay, still, I think it's in decline, but we've still got enormous potential, and we've got a fantastic foundation. That's because since Federation, about 75% of the time, the non-Labor side of politics has run the country. Now, that's not the same in the UK and the US, where it's been, over the last 120 years, it's been very 50-50 between the Democrats and the Republicans, or Labor and the Conservatives. But Australia has had, for 75% of our history, federal history, run by the non-socialists, and that's been a good thing. So, but what's happening now with the Liberals and the Nationals to some extent, not Barnaby accepted, is that it's the same as the Tory party in Britain. They're just spiralling down. They're so woke. They're trying to be as woke as the stupid left-sided party. And then we have this magnificent Nigel Farage coming through, who, the polls keep saying, every time I look at the polls said a year ago he's going to win. The polls just keep getting better and better. He's going to do what Trump's done in America now. But all that said, I hope like hell that the Liberals and the Nationals can get their act together. The biggest reform they need to do is they need to do what they do in Canada and Britain, where the membership gets to vote for the leadership, the parliamentary leadership. Clowns like Malcolm Turnbull, Scott Morrison and Susan Ley would never, ever be the leader. They'd never be the leader of the opposition or the Prime Minister. They wouldn't even run if the members of the party could get to vote on who the leader is. So until they do that... Now, look, I'm a Libertarian Party, okay? I hope that, I hope the Liberals and the Nationals can get their act together, but I'm not betting on it. I tried 30 years to fix the Liberals up internally and make them democratic, so we could have we've got two options to save the country. The Liberals and the Nationals get their act together through democratic reform, or a minor party, hopefully the Libertarian Party, pulls off a Farage-style revolution.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, why not join a mainstream party and make a change from inside? Well, the mainstream parties don't represent my values or my culture. If they did, I would have joined them years ago. Like, full confession, my grandfather was a staunch Labor supporter, but he'd be turning in his grave based on what they're doing to the people. And I think he'd be proud as punch that I am standing for a mainstream party. If those parties don't represent your values, why should you be forced to join them? Why should you be forced to change something that doesn't clearly want to change? Because they haven't changed in the time that they've been in power. So, I'm quite proud that I'm a minor party member because that party represents my values, and I represent those people that have those similar values.
Thanks, Mark. Has preferential voting had its day, or is there a reason for it to exist? The winner of the Melbourne Cup not decided by a ballot. Anyone?
You'd have to go to a referendum. At a federal level, you'd have to go to a referendum. And thank God we know how they work. But it is the system that we've got. You've got to also remember, if you had first past the post, what are you going to do in upper house areas? I mean, I'm happy you've got a diverse upper house, but you're going to lose a heap of them if it's first past the post. Because we did that before. What you're going to have is Liberal Party senators and Labor Party senators and nobody else.
Thanks, Barnaby. What should we do to pull our media into line to be honest? Wow, that one's for you, Barnaby. That's for you.
Well, you know what I'm going to say. You pay the ABC $1.1 billion a year. $1.1 billion a year. The thing I get so annoyed about is I don't mind that they've got mad, wacko lefties. The problem I've got is they're all mad, wacko lefties. I want to see some right... I've said this to the face, so it doesn't matter if you get it to them. Where's their right-wing commentator? Where's the crazy right-wing commentator? You go, well, if I want to consume something, I don't want to just hear it from a cabal of people predominantly voting for the Greens, whose views are just pathologically to the left. I mean, where has been their report, their forensic Four Corners report on the greatest swindle of our time, which is intermittent power? They don't touch it. They don't touch it. Mind you, they'll find one of their issues du jour, and that they'll trot that every time. I think the big thing is to say, if you only want to represent 3% of the community, you only get 3% of your funding.
To anyone, which government policies are the most effective in supporting the sustainability and profitability of farming in rural communities?
Tax cuts.
None at the moment.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to add anything?
The biggest problem we've got, like our next meeting is the next one I go to, is to find out how much of our land we're allowed to use anymore. And with the property, we go to the vegetation maps, where we're literally going to have some of our place we can only graze cattle on for 6 weeks. And this is privately bought land. We want the government out. I've said to people, pull me to pieces. We want the government out of our face. Stop telling it. Get socialism out of my face. The government is my servant. I'm not the government's servant. Stop stealing off me.
I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but in the slides as you were taking seated, there was a number of slides of news reports and photos and videos from around the world of farmers protesting with their tractors. A lot of them were European countries, Canada, the UK. This next question is about our ability to protest like our farmers' friends around the world. It seems it's time to take our tractors to state and federal parliaments and through the city streets like Europe has. How do we coordinate? Oh, I can't actually see the rest of this question. How do we coordinate this? Scroll up. Yeah, I can't scroll up on this. How do we coordinate this? That might do it. Anyone wish to answer that?
Well, look, Australia's had this reputation of being the lucky country, and it's true. That's why we call ourselves the lucky country. I mean, look, we're a European country, mostly European country. We've got a whole continent to ourselves. Okay, now when I was a little boy, there was one war from one end of Asia to the other. War. Vietnam War, Korean War. Indonesia had a big war. China was a civil war, basically. But now Asia's booming. Stock markets, people are buying Mercedes-Benz. It's getting better and better. That's good. And Australia's this little European outpost here on a whole continent. We've got this big moat around us. Illegal. I think we've got way excessive immigration, but we don't have illegal immigration like they have in Europe and America. So we're still the lucky country, but because we've been so badly governed since John Howard left, in my view, it's all been going downhill. That yes, because we've been so lucky, and we're still a very prosperous country, people don't take to the streets enough. So yes, I love what the farmers did in the Netherlands and other places. And yeah, that needs to happen in this country because, as Barnaby says, it really does send a message when we have a big protest. But it's going to get to that point because you can't have all these bad policies and all this regulation, all these high tax and all the global warming BS. People are starting to hurt, and that's when they'll take to the street.
You can see with the anti-renewables, and sorry to use that word, Barnaby, they're not renewables, has grown. There's over 160 groups established around Australia now against the unrenewable movement, and they're kicking goals like, look, there's been some action groups that have actually stopped wind factories from going ahead. I went to a meeting in Allara just talking about unrenewables, how bloody terrible they are, using Barnaby's words as swindle factories. And, there was 400 people that turned up to the Allara Bowls Club. And guess what? The next 2 days, the wind company said, oh, it's a bit hot there, we're going to cancel that proposal. We pulled down a solar fence with a bunch of farmers. And guess what? It was on national news. They got a heap of good stories out. It's about doing stuff. It's about working together, and that's where I'm coming back. Unity in community, and getting out there, joining forces, stand your ground, because it actually works. Projects have been stopped through pure force of a community saying no. So I would join up with your local action group, get involved because it actually works, and strength in power in unity.
Oh, pass it on to Alison.
The advantage about the Netherlands is about 200 kilometres long and 100 kilometres wide. So we need to look a little bit more clustered. And I think what you said is exactly right. Like up our valley, we've started with the whole transmission, so we need to have a family. We have to get all our families together, all our neighbours together, and start understanding what we can do as a valley. And then that valley talks to the next valley, and that valley talks to the next valley. Because we can go to Canberra. I think if you live in Victoria, that's easy, but it's a pretty long way from here on the tractor down the Hume Highway. But what we can do is we can, if we actually, and also you start having more stories as opposed to the one story, because it's easy to ignore one story. It's hard to ignore lots of stories, even ABC.
Yeah, well, I would just piggyback off what the other two were just saying, but yeah, once you find your group and you got your group growing, lean on the neighbouring groups as well, because the bastardry that is Energy Co is the same all around the state. I hear that everywhere I go chairing the inquiry into the renewable energy zones. It's the same story of bastardry all around the state. So you are not alone. You are going through this. You might feel like you're in a silo, but you are not alone. So get your group and then lean on the other neighbouring groups as well, because it's strength in numbers.
One thing you've got to watch out for. I'm going to tell you something seriously that's happening right now. There's a group called HERIOC, Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission, okay? This is for real. This is for real. They're now putting forward submissions that if what we're doing tonight would be outlawed as misinformation and disinformation. They literally want regulations that preclude you from bringing climate denialism in to create problems that would impede the transition to a green economy. And if you think if you're bored and can't get to sleep, there was a Senate committee that was chaired by the Greens, has been on the last couple of days. It was Orwellian to listen to it. Orwellian. They honestly believe there is a cabal that I know Scott and I we're financed by big coal from the United States, and we're some sort of evil cabal that is nefariously changing Australians' views. You know what that means? Here's the good news. They know we're winning the debate. We're winning. And they don't know what to do. So the only thing they're going to do is make it illegal for us to talk.
Thanks, Barnaby. Next question is to Emma. Are there parties or candidates that you'd recommend to get behind to help fight the res insanity?
Thank you. Look, I cannot thank John Ruddock and Mark Banasiak enough for probably a couple of years of support at the res level currently. We did a tour around the transmission project with Minister Moriarty, who is the Agriculture Minister, and with Minister Sharp, who is the Energy, Climate Change, and whatever else she is, Minister. Look, they like to say that they're listening to us and that what's happening is wrong and all of those sorts of things, but nothing has actually changed since they've visited. The res inquiry which Mark Banasiak chaired, or is still chairing, sorry. It has brought a lot of things that we as communities hit by the res already knew, but it's just made them very public. So if you want to have a look at the recordings of the hearings, I suggest that's a pretty good way to learn what's happening on the ground. We have had some support from the Nats recently, touring the area and having a look around, and so we thank them for that. Look, to be honest, I'm not going to forget who started the res, and that was under a coalition government. I can only look at what they're doing going forward, and I hope that is changing. But yeah, I'm concerned for the coalition and for our area going forward. I think we need some stronger support from the Nats and actually doing stuff on the ground, not just saying what they're doing going forward.
Thank you. We might just keep these last few questions and then wrap it up because we are aiming to finish at 8:30 and I do have a couple of final thanks to do. What does the future look like for the beef industry considering the challenges from climate activists, biosecurity risks and lack of industry representation? And maybe we could take that one step further and include how as part of that. Yeah, you can start.
The big elephant in the room, and I'm just going to say this, is the white Australian at the moment has less rights than anybody. And as far as a landowner, and I think this is a lot of reasons why the no got over the yes, is because we're very fearful of how that's going to play out. And I think this is also a very big concern that we're not allowed to talk about. Is like, what rights do we have even though we're 4th generation or 5th generation farmer and we're being told we don't have the first clue about what's going on in our land? And that really angers me because I feel I have as much connection to my land as the Aboriginals do. And when I listen to Welcome to Country, I go up to the uncle or the elder and I say, isn't it great that we all can have connection to country? And I get ignored. So that's one of the other things that I think is a big issue here. We do not have a say on the land that we love, that we know that we're custodians of, that our hearts are fist deep into that soil like anybody else, and that is absolutely ignored. Do you want to speak to that?
Yep. Thanks, Alison. Ian?
To be perfectly blunt, I think it's bad. I see a future where they'll develop vaccines and things that we'll be forced to use. They'll develop EBVs that we won't be, if we don't have them, we won't be able to sell those cattle. And all of this will be controlled by a central body that will be auditing you. And so there will be a cost involved in that. We don't know what those cattle will even look like, but it will put a lot of people out of business. At the moment, compliance with LLS stuff, with the new geo markers to get into Europe and coals, that's the next step. So if we want to go into markets, we're going to be regulated and we're going to be, basically scrutinised and audited and penalised and fined. And so, this is what it looks like. It looks really bad. There's no upside unless we basically say, hang on a minute, none of this. The one thing that I know that can save us is that nutrient-dense natural beef off grass is the best thing to feed your kids. And I hope the mothers of the world actually are the ones that stand up and say, we don't want all this crap. We don't want this to happen because what are we going to feed our kids if we basically just, kick the beef industry to the curb?
Okay, this is a big one. How do we stop these lies? This starts with students about 15 to 20 years before it becomes the new big issue, e.g. cow methane studies was in uni around 15 years ago. Anyone?
Well,
sorry.
Look, kids have always rebelled against the establishment. Now, the establishment has usually been right-wingers. What's happened now, the establishment is left-wingers. Now, I'm noticing with kids under the age of 25, they seem to be moving pretty right-wing, and I think that's because they've gone to preschool and infant school and primary school and high school, and they've had shoved down their throat sorry days and invasion, and they've had climate change shoved down their throat and rainbow BS shoved down their throat. And I think by the time they get to 21, a lot of them are starting to rebel against it. So there is hope for the young kids. And this has been a pattern since Aristotle. The kids rebel against the establishment. The establishment now are the baddies.
Yeah, look, I must confess I was a teacher in my former life. I wasn't a Teacher Federation member. But look, it does start with education, and we've got to point out the absurdity of some of these claims, and that's what I did as a geography teacher. When they talked about, cows' farts are polluting the earth, and I said, well, 1 in 4 people also release methane when they fart too, so what are you going to do there? We need to point out the absurdity of all this, and we need good teachers teaching our kids, and if they don't, and if those teachers don't represent your values, vote with your feet, go elsewhere. You see the power of that happening at the moment, where there's just this huge swathe of people pulling their kids out of public education. And for me, as a public educator for 18 years, that actually is sad to see, because they're good teachers. There are good teachers, but they're being overrun by this silly trap that's being pushed down their throats.
Thank you. The last question. In what way are we improving funding for LLS to help farmers improve production of their land?
Yeah, I echo what everyone said here. We're not. We're actually doing the exact opposite. You've just seen 260 jobs taken out of DPI across New South Wales, and that, you know, that's out of our research stations around the place: Orange, Tamworth, Glen Innes, Cowra. That's going to hurt us moving forward. You look at the LLS boards; they've cut their travel out of all the. They've cut the pay for LLS board members. They've cut the travel for LLS staff. They're making it harder for LLS to do their job. So then they can look at LLS and go, they're only operate at this level, to justify cutting them even further. So they're the bodies that should be supporting our agencies, our farmers, rather than cutting that out. The other big problem I see with LLS is them having the sort of the support role as well as the compliance role, which I think really confuses their role themselves and also their relationships with our farmers. So I think LLS is a great tool that we have. I know it's had some teething problems. It's a great tool that we do have, and we should be investing more in it and having it back to that local decisions that it once was after the LHPAs and PP boards, rather than centralising it, which we're seeing more and more from this government.
Did you want to?
Yeah, look, I think you also need greater account, noting Scott's comments about the funding that's been stripped out of LS. You also need greater accountability for the funding that they do get. And I would draw your attention to question time in budget estimates, where I highlighted that they've been taking money to manage biosecurity and do aerial culls and shooting into empty gullies and fraudulently dodging up the numbers to say that they've shot so many pigs and so many goats and so many deer. When you walk those properties, as a hunter, I know what a dead animal smells like, and I know most farmers in the room would know what a dead animal smells like. And if you've put 400 shots into a gully, you would know that that place would stink from high heaven in a couple of days. And when I've walked those properties, there's not a dead animal on the ground. So there needs to be, yes, more money, but greater accountability for the job that LLS is supposed to be doing for farmers as well.
Just one second.
I'll be quick. I just think that we can't afford anymore. We pay our LLS rates are ridiculous for what we get. We get near no service, and it's only compliance service, you know, and maybe a few permit things. But at the end of the day, when I fill out those forms and you know have to pay up, it hurts, because it's literally like throwing money down the toilet.
Just on the technical, I hope that these gentlemen and Alison, you get into politics, and then we'll gentleman and lady, that you actually become ministers. I really do. And the first thing you got to do when you're a minister is sack people. Sack people who are not part of the program of your government, who are invested in basically a green ideology of socialism, who really see what happens. You can change when at the night of the election. All you're talking about is who's won the election. They haven't actually changed government. Governments change when the bureaucracy changes. Governments change when the people who make all the referrals and the recommendations up to Scott Barrett have been changed. And there's nothing wrong with the night of the long knives. It is a great night. Go and find all these bureaucrats who are basically not on the program, and if you win government, sack them.
Okay, I fibbed. There's one last question, and it's a biggie. Is there any legal or constitutional way to stop this fool Albanese immediately from throwing Australia further under the bus with his grandstanding with the UN? Can I start with Barnaby on that one since you're federal?
I'd love to say something romantic. No, you got him. You got him, and the only thing I can say is he thinks he's there on, 94 seats, but he's only there on 34% of the primary vote. That is incredibly febrile. That means a small amount of a change. Bill Shorten always reminds me, I know Bill, that he got a vastly higher primary vote than Albanese did. He just didn't win the election, which I'm glad he didn't. But the only thing that can change Mr. Albanese is you.
I'll make a very quick comment.
Yep.
Look, I know it's easy to hate Anthony Albanese, and we hate him the most at the Libertarian Party, but this is the reality. It annoys us when people say how bad he is. Turnbull and Morrison were 80% as bad. Okay, so when you think, oh, Albo's so bad, okay. Look, we need more than just to kick out the Labor Party. Okay, we need something radically different.
Thanks, John. I'm just going to quickly get organised to draw the lucky door, but I'd like to invite Sandra Burke just for 2 minutes. You've got 2 minutes, Sandra. And it does tie in with our lucky door prize, which will make sense in a moment.
Hello, just 2 things. It's been wonderful. Thank you. The first thing I'd like to say is, yes, there already is a movement. Okay, we may not have badges or everything, but it's national. And I'm part of it, and there's thousands of us all over the country. I was only talking to 60 farmers last night from Western Australia. And secretly, you heard it here first, so I'm probably going to get into trouble, but who cares? On the 19th of October, we have organised for farmers to appear at March for Australia. Now, whatever your views are on the March for Australia, aside from all the crap that you're going to hear in the media, this is your chance to march for our country, for your issue, and stand up for regional Australia and democracy. The second thing I'd like to say is a group of us nationally have been working with rainforest reserves. Rainforest reserves, Steve Nowakowski, a great photographer, fantastic imagery, has been breaking into, along with quite a few of us, some of these renewable zones to photograph the serious damage we're seeing to our wildlife, the death of our koalas and sugar gliders. We have taken government data, all of the government data. We have taken data from the communities, proposed proponents, and we have mapped it. The map will go live at rainforest reserves this Monday. Chris Bowen has tried to shut us down, but he has failed. This is a non-partisan map where you can go zoom in with your fingers, bring up your area, your backyard, and you can see what Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen is building in this country without our consent. You will see what he is doing, and then you will hopefully join this movement, speak to your friends and neighbours, and take our country back.
Thank you, Sandra. I would like to draw the Lucky Door prize. I managed to pick up the calendar in Coolah, and I was so excited because it's Steve Nowakowski's calendar, his photography. And if you see his work or books anywhere, he'd love you to support him so he can keep being an activist through Rainforest Reserves Australia and support our plight to protect the bush, our forests and our farmland. So I might just ask John Ruddock, please, to draw the lucky door. And in that, I would like to thank the Libertarian Party for their Slido and tech support this evening.
Red C15. Red C15.
It was almost me, but that would have been way too
If you... Thank you.
We've got a winner?
Thank you. Well done.
Just the one.
That's it. Thank you. Okay, now for the final thanks. I would like to thank the organisers. We are a small group of rural women who care, and we don't represent any organisation, but we are very concerned for our kids and for our farms and for our collective future. So I'd really like to thank Nancy, Emma, and Karen Fox. Thank you very much. Special thanks to the panel, Jim, Emma, Ian, and we're sorry we couldn't get Katie here. Your insights and experience, I think, are what need to be heard everywhere. If we can't share our story on social media because it seems to get lost or buried, then we have to keep meeting in person and letting each other know that we are not alone. So thank you very much. To our elected representatives from all three levels, thank you very much for your willingness to be involved and for participating. It can be hard, but as a community, if we come together without someone on the ground to answer our questions and to give us guidance on how we make change by the levels of government that govern us and our farms and our systems, we wouldn't know where to start. So we really appreciate your willingness to be here. Thank you. And lastly, the organisations, we're all individuals. We probably all wear, a number of hats, the PNC or the Camp Drive Club or the Rotary down the street doing raffles. But unfortunately, we do need to come together to work towards making change for our future, because if we all go home and we thought, oh gee, that was inspiring, we haven't actually changed a thing. We need you guys to put your hand up and pick something that resonates with you, whether it's a lobby group or a party or an advocacy group or someone that helps bring your community together. We need your passion, your heart, your head. You care. So please put your hand up, take a step forward and join us. Thank you everyone for coming.